Okay, so I want to quickly tell what we were talking about last night with your dad in the war and in the church tower.
Oh, yeah, I said, he didn't talk much about the war. However, there was an event that he did talk about, only because it was an explanation of why we visited this family, or he'd always visit this family in Cleveland. Uh, he and two other of his, I don't know what you call them, buddies, comrades, whatever, were in a church tower, and very similar, if you saw the movie Saving Private Ryan, when they were in the church tower there, and were providing cover fire for the other troops, and they zeroed in on it with a machine gun, the Germans did, and took it out, and he was the only one that survived that, and he doesn't even know how, and that didn't even get a scratch on him, but his buddies got killed, and one of them was from Cleveland, that he would always go visit their family then when he got back. So I think that's what you were referring to. And
All right, so when did you graduate from high school?
a long time ago, 1961, we had the largest graduating class in the history of Marysville High School with 96. And and that Marysville was not a very big city at that time. And
What do you think the population was then?
probably around 4,500, because when your mother and I moved back there in 1968, it was about 5,000, 4,900 or 5,000. So it wasn't even big then when we moved back. But the nice thing about that is you knew who lived in every house. I don't know if that's good or bad. But the bad thing about that is, if there used to be a lady that lived on Maple Street named Lillian Shirk, who, before I could get home, and I lived on 8th, she lived on the corner of Maple and 6th. Before I could get home on 8th Street, she would already have called my mother and told her that I was speeding down Maple Street. So there's the good and the bad of living in a small town. Everybody knew what you did, and of course everybody always told your parents what you did. I think one of my funnier experiences, I was leaving for, everybody met in the summer as everybody's leaving for school at the same time in the summer, as we were spreading out to go to colleges, and we'd meet at what was called the Dairy Isle, not the Dairy Queen, but Dairy Isle, and it was on 5th Street. And I had this Plymouth convertible that I'd drive back to school, and so everybody's yelling, "See ya, yeah," and I put it in reverse and back up, boom, crunch. And it wasn't hit hard, I mean, but and you do one of those slow takes where you look back like that, I'll be damned, it's the police. So I hit a police car backing up, but it didn't do any damage to either car. And since I did know him, since you knew all the policemen too, because they'd always tell you, "We're going to tell your dad," he just said, "Be careful." Yeah, okay. And that, so things like that. That was the thing of a small town. It was kind of like Happy Days. Like, we really even had a drive-in. It was called Huey's Hurricane Drive-In.
Is that where Benny's is now?
No. It was on what we call, when you grew up, we called the Point.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And there was a drive-in there, and it also had like a Dairy Queen ice cream stand at one end of it. And it was where two roads came together to be. And They had jukeboxes in there, and it was just like out of Happy Days. And they had car hops that would come out to your car and serve food, and it was called Huey's Hurricane. Huey Lewis, believe it or not, owned it. Now, it wasn't the guy from Huey Lewis in the news, but that happened to be his name, was Huey Lewis. So he had the name before the big star did. And then he had real pompadour blonde hair that was real high and combed straight back and was real wavy. And but that's where everybody hung out. We would each donate a quarter at the start of the night to whoever was driving so that you could go cruising, because you could buy a gallon of gas for a quarter. And on $1 worth of gas, you could cruise all night.
Now that was the edge of town then, right?
Oh yeah. That was it. I mean, you didn't go far to be from one end of town to the other.
Right.
As a matter of fact, we had one police car in town. There was one police. I remember when they went to two, and that was really traumatic, because then you weren't sure where the one was. If you saw the one, then you knew you'd go someplace else. He wasn't going to be there. And they didn't have a radio. What they had was they would park at the square downtown, what we call the square, 5th and Main. You know how inset there in front of Weiss Brothers department store? They would park there. And overhead by the traffic light was a light bulb. And if the light bulb came on, that meant there was a call for the police. And so you could equate that to Barney Miller, yeah. And so then they would call in and find out where they were supposed to go.
So where was the police station at the time?
Police station was at where the fire department is. They were combined. And the fire department's still there, believe it or not. So, yeah, they were all in the same place and everything. And you only had, let's see, you had a chief of police, Dick Simpson, his daughter was in my class, Patty, and 2 other policemen, Tom Heil and Clarence Brown. And that was it. There were 3 policemen for the whole town. And a sheriff for the outlying area. And I think they had like 2 cars. But you didn't have any crime. And what you did for entertainment was, when I was little, my father would drive uptown, what we call uptown, downtown Marysville, on a Saturday night, park the car in a good spot, which was usually in front of the AMP store, which was right there in the center of town on Main Street, kind of across,
Is that where McAuliffe's used to be?
Well, now you talking about the really original McAuliffe's? Yeah, where the original
True Value, yeah.
Well, no.
Across from the Ohio?
Oh, no. I'm talking about, you know where the First National Bank used to be, the old bank? No, you don't know that either. You know where Sherwin-Williams is? Sherwin-Williams Paint right now?
Close to the theater.
Across from the movie theater.
Across from the movie theater, thank
That's
you.
right.
Yeah, across the movie theater. And he would park there. And then he would walk home. And you're probably thinking, why in the world would you do something stupid like that? Drive a car up there, park it in the afternoon, and then walk home on a Saturday. And then early Saturday evening, Grandma Amrine, Mom, Dad, and myself, and and had to be my brother, you know, we would then walk uptown. I mean, nothing was very far. We would walk uptown, and Grandma Amrine would get in the back of the car on the sidewalk side and roll the window down, and this is what everybody did. And the men would all sit on the fenders of their car, on the sidewalk side,
Isn't that funny?
and everybody would come in because all the stores were open downtown, the supermarkets, and that's when everybody came in from the country to do their shopping and everything. And Saturday night was a big night in downtown Marysville. And at the square where there was 5th and Main Street, in the square there, they would have square dancing. No traffic allowed through there from a certain time until a certain time. And the big thing was they would give you a dime. And with a dime, you could go to Earl Cheesy's ice cream parlor and candy shop, or you could go to Clancy's ice cream and candy shop, or you could get into the movie theater and still have a nickel left to buy a bag of popcorn. I mean, you could do a lot on a dime then. Well, loaf of bread was only 20 cents. So, you know, but what they made was not quite like it is now either. So, but that's how you would spend Saturday night. And everybody would stop and visit because nobody had a TV. So I'm talking about back in the like 47 to 50, you know, in that period of time. And all your major department stores, or not for Marysville major department stores and supermarkets and everything, were all located downtown. You had no shopping centers. As a matter of fact, the first shopping center that I remember was the first shopping center that was built in the United States of America. It was on East Broad Street in Columbus, Ohio, called Town and Country. And that was the first shopping center ever built in America. And it was, of course, that would never work. I can remember them saying, this will never work. You know, having something like that. People won't drive just there to shop. And now, of course, that's all anybody does. But that's kind of how I grew up.
Now that McAuliffe's there, when I was growing, was that a Woolworth's?
No, McAuliffe's then they moved down. McAuliffe's.
It was
closed.
some kind of 5 and dime when I was growing up because I remember getting shakes in the back and hamburgers.
No, wait.
Right across from the movie theater.
Across the movie theater, what you're talking about was called, it used to be called Wagamots, then it was called Orhood, Wagamots and Orhood, then it was called Orhood, and then it was called McCarthy.
Oh, McCarthy's, that's right.
And it was a drugstore.
McCarthy's.
It was a drugstore.
But it had a...
And in the back, they had a counter where you got cherry cokes, and that's where everybody went after school, either there or to Butler's.
We went there after school too, after
and
after
you get
junior
cherry
high.
cokes, and there were little booths in the back and everything. And we had, believe it or not, in Marysville then, I can remember there was the Strand, the Rex, and the Avalon, 3 movie theaters. If you can imagine that in a town that size. And now there are none. There are none. The last one, the Avalon, closed this year. It finally closed. I hadn't been to it in a year because the seats come up and bite you in the butt now, and it was rather small and everything, but you could, you know, they showed first run. And then what they would do too, the thing I can remember going to that was really big, and you saw it in the old movies, is when they would come in with the minstrel shows. And they would have that over at the Big 4 Park, what they call the Big 4 Park, which is where, you know, where the big video store was, used to be an AMP store, over there on East 7th Street.
That became Cardinals?
Cardinals, AMP became Cardinals, Cardinals became the video store.
Right.
Before all that, it was a big park and everything. And they would have the carnivals come in and the minstrel shows, And then carnivals would be downtown on the street. As a matter of fact, when I was little, I tended to have freckles. And I always voiced what I thought. And this lady, I wasn't winning at this game of where you threw this ball and knocked down these bottles. And then I figured it out, she was cheating and everything. And because the bottles were weighted. And so I was telling everybody, don't play this game because it's not fair, it's cheating. And she told me, she says, look, Red, if you don't shut up and get out of here, I'm going to push your freckles together and give you a good tan. And I immediately took off. But on Court Street, they'd always have a carnival, street carnivals set up, maybe once a month in the summer. And the minstrel shows would come in with like vaudeville acts, and that'd be over in Big Forest Park. So there's always something going on. First bowling alley was 3 lanes underneath the old Kroger store, which is now the Elks, downtown. It was in the basement.
Now, growing up, I remember the county air show.
Oh, the Union County Air Show. Yeah, that was your cousin's. My grandfather, which you have on there before, my grandfather Amrine, his sister's husband, in other words, Lee's, which is now owned by Gary Lee and was owned by Lewis, and Dewey Lee owned where the air show. Well, wait, when you were growing up, the air show was at the airport, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, it started out on Route 4 on your cousin's farm because they had an airstrip. And that's where the air show started.
Why did they have an airstrip? Did they crop fields or?
No, they had a plane.
Which cousin?
Dewey Lee.
Why do you have a
Dewey
plane?
and Lewis and them out off Route 4. Right across from where, behind what used to be the county home and is, you know where I mean, out there. And the big thing, one thing I can remember, they have fly-in breakfasts where planes from all over would fly in, and then these organizations would all join together in Marysville, and they would cook these breakfasts and sell it, and those were the big fundraisers. And Owen McAllister, who was a mailman, all of a sudden he came up with the idea, or somebody came up with the idea, that if Owen would go parachute out of a plane, you know, if they raised this much money, Owen would go jump out of an airplane. And everybody's going, oh my God, Owen's going to jump out of an airplane, you know, parachute out. And you had to know Owen because he was the last person that you would think would jump out of an airplane and everything like this mailman and everything. So they raised all the money from all the people who flown. Yeah, we'll pay this, see him kill himself, you know, we don't care. And so they raised all this money, and they took the plane up, and Owen jumped out of the airplane and parachuted to the ground, not knowing that in World War II he was a paratrooper. So he conned everybody, and they raised all this money for different organizations by him conning everybody and not knowing that he had been a paratrooper in World War II. Just a few people knew it. I didn't know it, you know, and everything. So we were ready to watch Owen go to the ground, but it didn't happen. But those were the kind of fun things. But the air show you're talking about was out at the, quote, new airport, which now has even been expanded since you've been there, and now they have bigger jets landing and corporate jets and everything like that. It's kind of a regional airport now. It's interesting how that's grown.